My cousin told everyone I didn't belong, and Grandma cried because she knew it was true. For a second, nobody moved, like we were all waiting for the punchline that was supposed to make it safe to laugh. My cousin Paige stood at the head of the table with a plastic cup raised like she was giving a toast, cheeks flushed from wine and attention, and she angled her chin toward me without even looking embarrassed. "I just think," she said, voice sugary and loud, "we should do the family photo with actual family, like the real ones." Her eyes flicked to me then, quick, sharp, and she smiled like she just said something reasonable. "No offense, but people made little noises, the kinds you make when you don't want to be implicated." I heard my aunt inhale like she'd been startled. Someone's fork clinked against a plate. And at the far end, my grandma's face crumpled in the smallest, most devastating way, like the words hit a bruise that had been there for years. She put a hand over her mouth, shoulders trembling, and a sound came out of her that wasn't a sob exactly, more like her body forgetting how to hold itself together. She started crying at the table, in front of everyone, because she knew Paige wasn't saying anything new. She was just saying it out loud. I felt heat rush up my neck and then drain out of me, leaving my arms buzzing and cold. The room looked too bright, like the overhead light was suddenly aimed directly at my face. I stared at the cheap birthday banner taped crookedly on the wall. Happy 80th. NAN. Because looking at the banner was easier than looking at the circle of people who were deciding whether to pretend this was normal. My mouth opened. I tried to speak, but my tongue felt thick. Paige laughed lightly, like she was smoothing it over for me. "Don't be dramatic," she added quickly, and that was the moment I understood she'd planned this. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't even angry. She was pleased. Grandma's crying made Paige's eyes widen for half a second, but even that didn't soften her. It just annoyed her like Grandma had ruined her moment. My uncle cleared his throat and said, all right, in a tone that meant let's not make a scene, but he didn't say Paige was wrong. My mom's hands tightened around the serving spoon. My dad's jaw worked like he was grinding his teeth. No one said my name. Nobody said stop. They just watched Grandma cry and watched me stand there with my skin humming. And in that silent gap, Paige's words settled into place the way things settle when they've been true for a long time. It was Grandma's 80th birthday lunch, the kind of family gathering that's supposed to be warm and sentimental and full of stories you've heard 100 times. My family loves milestones because milestones are easy to post about. Mom had been stressed for weeks, texting lists like she was coordinating a wedding. Who's bringing dessert? Who's picking up balloons? Who's bringing folding chairs because we don't have enough? Paige was in charge of photos. She always is because she likes being in charge of what gets remembered. And she'd been strutting around all morning with her phone, telling people where to stand, how to smile, what angle was more flattering. I'd arrived early to help Grandma get ready because she was nervous about seeing everyone. Her hands shook when she clipped her earrings in, and she kept smoothing down her blouse like she was trying to press herself into presentable shape. "They'll be here soon," she'd whispered to me, and when I hugged her she held on too long, like she was trying to borrow steadiness. I didn't think the day would end with her crying at her own table because my cousin decided to turn my existence into a debate. My adoption was never a secret in my immediate household. I was 3 when Mom and Dad brought me home, and I grew up knowing the story the way you know the story of your own name. They told me early, gently, with picture books and honest answers. Mom always said, "We chose you," like choice was supposed to outweigh everything else. Dad would add, "You're ours," like the sentence could build a wall against the rest of the world. When I was little, that was enough. At home, I belonged. At school, it was a fun fact I could share on Mother's Day crafts. But extended family is different. Extended family is where people think they can love you while still keeping you at arm's length. They didn't say it outright when I was young, not in front of my parents. They said it in smaller ways, forgetting to put my name on Christmas stockings, accidentally leaving me out of group texts, introducing me as their adopted one, like it was a quirky accessory. They'd ask weird questions when they thought I wasn't listening. "Do you know anything about her real family?" And when I got older, they'd say things like, "You're so lucky they took you in," as if I was a stray animal that should be grateful for shelter. I learned how to keep my face neutral when those comments landed. I learned how to laugh along. I learned how to be easy, because being easy got you invited back. Grandma was the exception. She never treated me like a visitor. She'd say my girl, and mean it. She'd keep a box of my favorite biscuits at her place, even when I wasn't coming over for weeks. She'd call me on my birthday before anyone else did. When I was 15 and had my first serious breakup and cried so hard I felt sick, I drove to Grandma's house and sat on her kitchen floor, and she made tea and didn't ask me to explain until I was ready. She would look at me with this firm, calm gaze and say, "You're here. That's enough." She wasn't perfect. None of them are. But she saw me as a person, not a category. Paige, meanwhile, had always treated me like a category. Paige is 2 years older than me, the first grandchild, the one who got called our pride at every school awards night. She has that kind of confidence that comes from being mirrored back as important from the moment you're born. When we were kids, she'd do family games where she'd hand out roles, mom, dad, baby, dog, and I'd always be the neighbor or the babysitter. When we got older, she learned subtler ways to make the point. She'd say, "Remember when we were little and you came along?" Like I was an add-on. She'd tell people, "It's cool, she's basically my cousin," like she was being generous by allowing the word. One time at Christmas, when I was 17, she got drunk and told her friends, I don't even know where she came from, and laughed when I stiffened, then said, "Relax, it's a joke." My family's favorite kind of joke is the kind that only lands on one person. I kept showing up anyway. I don't even know how to explain that to people who grew up in families where belonging isn't something you have to earn over and over. I kept showing up because I loved Grandma, and because part of me still believed that if I was present enough, helpful enough, pleasant enough, the edges would soften. I'd bring desserts. I'd offer to wash dishes. I'd listen to the same stories and laugh at the same lines. I learned to make myself small in rooms that didn't know what to do with me, because smallness feels like safety when you're not sure you're wanted. This birthday lunch was supposed to be one of those safe days. Grandma had been looking forward to it, even though she pretended she wasn't. "It's too much fuss," she'd said, but she'd picked out a new lipstick anyway. She'd asked me 3 times that morning if the table looked okay. She'd made me promise to sit near her. "So I can see your face," she'd said, patting the chair beside her. Then everyone arrived in a flood. The house filled with perfume and noise and the smell of hot chicken from the oven. Paige swept in wearing a dress that looked like it belonged at a bridal shower. Phone already up, talking as if she was narrating a show. "Okay, Nana, look this way." "No, that way, your good side." Grandma laughed politely, but her eyes kept darting to me, as if checking that I was still there. I stayed close, grounding myself in the mundane tasks, passing plates, refilling water, cutting cake. Paige made little comments the whole time. "I didn't know you'd come early. You're so involved today. Look at you being domestic." They weren't loud enough for my parents to hear, but loud enough for me, too. The real family moment happened after lunch, when Paige decided it was time for the big photo. She clapped her hands to get everyone's attention and waved her phone like a conductor's baton. "All right, everyone outside by the fence. Nana in the middle. The grandkids around her." People shuffled out, dragging chairs across the patio. Someone complained about the sun. Someone asked for another drink first. Paige's voice cut through it all, bright and bossy. Grandma sat down in the middle of the yard on a chair with a cushion. She looked small out there, framed by the garden Mom had insisted on tidying for the occasion. Paige started arranging bodies. "Okay, boys behind Nana, girls in front, parents behind." "No, not you there, Uncle Matt, you're blocking Nana's face." Everyone obeyed, because Paige speaks like authority. I hovered near the edge, waiting for someone to tell me where to stand. Grandma patted her lap and smiled at me. "Come here," she said softly, reaching for my hand. Paige saw it. Her eyes narrowed, and she stepped between us like she was adjusting the shot. "Actually," she said loudly, not looking at Grandma, just projecting to everyone, "we should keep it simple. Like blood grandkids. It'll look cleaner." She smiled, as if this was about aesthetics. Then she looked at me. No offense. The yard went still. Not silent. There were still birds, still distant traffic, but socially still. That pause where everyone feels the moment tilt and has to decide what kind of people they are. Grandma's hand was still reaching for mine when Paige said it. I watched Grandma's fingers curl in the air, then drop back to her lap like they'd lost permission. That's not what I meant, Grandma started, voice thin. Paige laughed too quickly. Nana, it's fine. You know I love her, she said, and she said the word her like I wasn't standing right there. It's just for the photo. Like family. I felt my face burning. My dad took a half step forward and I saw something like anger flicker his eyes, but then my mom touched his arm, just a light, calming touch, and he stopped. My mom's face was tight, her smile forced. She was doing math in her head. How to keep the moment from exploding, how to protect the day, how to keep Paige from throwing a tantrum, how to keep Grandma from crying. Nobody was doing math about me. Grandma's lower lip trembled. She looked from Paige to me, eyes shining. She is my family, she said, and her voice cracked on the word my. Paige sighed dramatically. Nana, she said like Grandma was being difficult. It's not that deep. And then Grandma cried. Just cried. Right there. Her shoulders shook and her face crumpled, and she put her hand over her mouth like she was trying to swallow the sound. It made the whole yard feel suddenly too exposed. Someone muttered, "Oh no," under their breath. My aunt started toward Grandma with her arms out, but Paige waved her off like she was managing a situation. Okay, Paige said, voice annoyed now. Nana, don't do that, please. You're going to ruin the photo. That sentence did something to me. It was like a switch, because I saw it so clearly. Paige wasn't worried Grandma was hurt. Paige was worried Grandma's hurt would disrupt Paige's plan. I walked toward Grandma without waiting for permission. I knelt beside her chair and took her hand. Grandma's skin was warm and papery, her grip surprisingly strong. She squeezed like she was holding on to a lifeline. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm so sorry. For what? I whispered back, my own throat tight. Grandma looked at me with that unbearable mix of love and guilt. Because I knew, she said, voice shaking. I knew I knew it would come to this. I knew you'd hear it one day. The words landed heavy. She wasn't saying Paige was correct in some moral sense. She was saying the truth everyone avoids, that my belonging had always been conditional in this family, and she had watched it happen. She had tried, quietly, to counteract it with her own love, but she hadn't stopped the machine. Paige stood over us, impatient, phone in hand. Can we just take the photo? She snapped. Everyone's waiting. My dad's voice finally cut in sharp. Paige, he said, and the warning in his tone made a couple people turn. Back off. Paige blinked, offended. Excuse me. Dad stepped closer, jaw tight. You don't get to do this, he said, and his voice shook slightly, like anger and fear were tangled together. Not today. Not ever. My mom looked panicked. Okay, she said quickly, hands up trying to smooth. Everyone calm down. Paige scoffed. Oh my God, she said loudly. Here we go. I'm just being honest. Everyone thinks it. I'm just saying it. And that's when something in my chest gave way. Not into a scream, not into a dramatic speech, just into a tired clarity. I stood up slowly. My knees felt shaky. I could feel everyone looking at me now, waiting to see if I'd cry, waiting to see if I'd be too sensitive, waiting to see if I'd perform the role they'd assigned me. I looked at Paige and said, You didn't say anything new. Paige's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means you didn't invent this, I said, voice steady, surprising even me. You're just the first one to say it out loud in front of Grandma. Paige's mouth opened, then closed, like she didn't know how to argue with that. She tried anyway. I'm not a villain, she snapped. It's just facts. I looked around the yard, the aunts, the uncles, my brother, my mom, my dad. Faces tight, uncomfortable, defensive, embarrassed. Grandma wiping tears with a napkin like she was trying to erase them. I don't know what facts you think you're defending, I said quietly. But what you're actually defending is a feeling. The feeling that I'm extra, optional, that I should be grateful for crumbs. My mom flinched at the word crumbs, like it accused her directly. Maybe it did. Paige's cheeks flushed. God, you're so dramatic, she said, and she gave a little laugh that didn't get echoed this time. Dad's voice was low and furious. "Stop calling her dramatic," he said. "You're the one who just told her she doesn't belong." Paige turned to my dad like he was the problem now. "Why are you defending her?" she demanded. "She's not even—" "Enough," Dad snapped. My mom finally found her voice, but it came out wrong. "Paige, sweetheart," she said, using that soft tone she reserved for managing tantrums. "That was not appropriate." Paige stared at her, incredulous. "Not appropriate? She's ruining Nana's birthday with her issues." Grandma made a small sound then, a choked, pained noise. And she pushed herself up from the chair, shaky but stubborn. "No," Grandma said, voice trembling. "You did that. You did that with your mouth." Everyone went quiet again, but this time it wasn't hungry quiet. It was startled quiet, because Grandma never confronts. Grandma soothes. Grandma holds things together with biscuits and gentle hands. Seeing her stand there, tears drying on her face, was like watching the floor shift. Paige's eyes widened. "Nana, I didn't." "You did," Grandma said, and her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "You've always been jealous of her for no reason. And I've watched you pick at her, like she's not part of us." Grandma looked at me then, eyes wet again. And I let it go because I didn't want fights. I thought love would be enough. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I didn't want Grandma blaming herself, and yet I understood why she did. Because she'd been the only one insisting I belonged, and she knew insisting quietly doesn't always protect you. Paige backed up a step, face hardening into anger as embarrassment took over. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "Fina, take your stupid photo however you want. I'm done." She turned on her heel and stalked toward the house, phone in hand, leaving a trail of awkwardness behind her like smoke. For a moment, nobody moved. Then my aunt started fussing. "Mom, sit down here, have some water," and my mom jumped into hostess mode like she could patch the moment with logistics. Dad stood beside me, breathing hard, like he'd run a race. Grandma sat back down slowly, wiping her cheeks. I knelt beside Grandma again. "Nan," I whispered. Grandma took my face in both hands, palms warm and trembling. She looked at me like she was trying to memorize me. "You do belong," she said, urgent, almost fierce. "Do you hear me? You belong with me." My throat burned. "I know," I whispered, though the truth was more complicated. I belonged with Grandma. I didn't know if I belonged with the rest of them. Grandma's eyes filled again. "I hate that I couldn't fix it," she said. I swallowed hard. "You didn't break it," I said, and my voice shook. "You just loved me inside it." The rest of the afternoon moved in that weird, fractured way things do after a family rupture. People tried to act normal, offering cake, making small talk, commenting on the weather, but everyone's eyes kept darting. Paige stayed inside, sulking. My mom kept checking her phone like she was waiting for an explosion. My dad hovered near me like he was trying to make up for years in one day, which is sweet and also heartbreaking because you can't compress time like that. Eventually, when a yard had thinned and the sun had shifted, my mom cornered me in the kitchen while I was wrapping leftovers for Grandma. Her voice was tight, controlled. "You didn't have to provoke her," she said. "Istir de her." "Provoke her," I repeated. Mom's eyes flicked away. "You know, Paige," she said like that explained everything. "She gets dramatic." I actually laughed once, short and humorless. "Right," I said. "Paige is dramatic. I'm sensitive. Everyone else is just normal." Mom's mouth tightened. "Don't do that," she hissed. "Don't make me the villain." I looked at her, really looked. Her face wasn't cruel. It was scared. Scared of conflict. Scared of admitting she'd been complicit. Scared of the story shifting. "I'm not making you anything," I said quietly. "I'm just done pretending it didn't hurt." Mom swallowed. "Your grandma is upset," she said, and the emphasis was on grandma, like my pain only mattered because it affected someone else. "I know," I said. "I saw." Mom's voice softened for a second, and I almost didn't recognize it. "She loves you," she said. "I know," I repeated. "But love isn't the same as belonging." Mom flinched at that, like it was too true to hold. That night, after everyone left, I sat with Grandma in the living room while she picked a slice of cake she didn't really want. The house was quieter now, the kind of quiet that settles after a storm. Grandma's eyes were puffy. She kept smoothing the tablecloth as if she could smooth the day too. "I'm sorry you heard it," she said again. I watched her hands. "I've heard versions of it my whole life," I admitted, "just not with a microphone." Grandma let out a shaky breath. "Paige thinks blood is the only thing that counts," she said bitterly, as if blood made her kind. I felt a small, tired smile tug at my mouth. "She's good at making everything a competition," I said. Grandma nodded. Then she reached over and took my hand, squeezing it. "When your mom and dad brought you home," she said softly, "I held you, and you fell asleep on my shoulder. You had this little frown, like you were already guarding yourself. I remember thinking, we don't deserve her if we don't make her safe." Grandma's voice cracked, and I didn't do enough. I squeezed her hand back. "You did," I said firmly. "You were the only one who didn't make me feel like I had to audition." Grandma's eyes filled again, but this time she didn't wipe them fast. She let them exist. "I hate that she was right in one way," she whispered. "Not about blood, but about the way they treat you. Like you're optional." She shook her head, tears slipping. I knew it was true because I watched it, and I thought if I loved you loudly enough, it would drown it out. My chest hurt. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "It did drown it out," I said. "For me. Sometimes. But I can't keep living on sometimes." Grandma nodded slowly, like she understood. "Then don't," she said simple. "Don't keep begging them to make space. Come to me. Let them miss you." I stared at her, the weight of that sentence settling. Let them miss you. I'd spent my whole life trying to be present enough to be included, and Grandma was telling me to step back and let absence teach what presence never did. The next day, Paige posted the photos anyway. A neat grid on Instagram. Grandma smiling. Blood grandkids clustered around her, filtered warm and golden like nothing happened. Then, 3 slides later, a candid of Paige laughing with a caption about family being everything. No mention of Grandma crying. No mention of what she said. The story they tell is always smoother than the truth. Grandma called me when she saw the post. Her voice was quiet, tired. "I saw it," she said. I closed my eyes. "I know. I told your mom," Grandma said, and there was steel under the softness. "I told her I won't sit for photos without you again." Something in my chest loosened. Just a notch. Not healed, but seen. I don't know how this ends, honestly. I wish I could give you a neat conclusion where Paige apologizes and everyone has a breakthrough conversation and my mom suddenly becomes brave. That's not my family. My family does denial like it's a sport. They'll act like yesterday was a misunderstanding. They'll say Paige didn't mean it like that. They'll say Grandma was emotional. They'll say I'm holding a grudge. They'll try to sand down the edges until it fits back into something postable. But I can't unhear it now. I can't unknow the way the yard went still while Paige measured my belonging like it was a design choice. I can't forget Grandma crying because she knew the truth wasn't Paige's cruelty. It was the family's quiet agreement. And maybe that's the part I'm finally ready to face. I don't need all of them to choose me to belong. I need to stop standing in rooms where my existence is up for debate. I need to stop shrinking myself to make other people comfortable. I can love my family and still refuse the parts of them that treat me like an extra. I can honor Grandma's love without letting everyone else's silence define me. My cousin told everyone I didn't belong, and Grandma cried because she knew it was true. Not because blood is everything. Not because adoption makes you less. But because for years, I've been surviving in a family that only made room for me when it was convenient. And Grandma was the only one willing to say, with tears on her face, that convenience was never love.